Now, the news. A company called BSD Fabrication and Works announced recently that they are releasing a gun that most of us have sort of only dreamt of. The VSS Vintorez, or as those of you playing Black Ops 6, the ASVAL. Now, traditionally, this gun would fire a 9x39 cartridge. It's a Russian cartridge, and although it's been attempted to make that popular in the US, it just hasn't caught on, and therefore this gun will be chambered in 300 Blackout. The gun itself is integrally suppressed. It's sort of a very unique version of an AK type rifle. It's different in a bunch of ways, like you can take it apart and do cool shit. It's really neat, but that's the easiest way to explain it. The can is actually being made by B&T, which is neat, and it's user serviceable. It looks rad as a package. However, the MSRP, $6,500. Innovation does come at a cost, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about it down in the comments, and I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't mention this next part. One of the most fascinating things about this is when you Google this company, a Reddit thread from about a year ago comes up containing screenshots allegedly from the owner of this brand from a long while back, like 10 plus years, bragging about buying pills and doing meth, as well as some other screenshots of some shenanigans regarding shady business practices. People can absolutely make their lives better, and they can heal from the trauma that made them do drugs in the first place. But I know you guys would be pissed if I didn't include that as part of this story. Really, really strange stuff. I hope the guy's doing well. Link to that thread in the description. Welcome back to another episode of the Gun Collective News. I'm John Patton, and thanks to you guys, we are closing in on 400,000 subscribers on YouTube, and it's freaking awesome. This show, none of this happens without you guys out there commenting, liking the videos, subscribing to the channel. So thanks for giving it. I really appreciate it. How's about some more interesting guns? I know a lot of you guys want to talk about the new stuff from PSA, and we are going to get to that, I promise. We're gonna have a whole thing on that. But first is one from a company called Insight Armory. They are making an SVD, AKA the Dragunov, and they're making it here in the US, in Texas. Details are a bit sparse on this one, but they are using a billet receiver, supposedly a bunch of parts that are similar to the original SVD, but with an Americanized twist for things like muzzle thread pitch. That makes sense. I'm glad they're thinking of that. It'll be chambered in 7.62 54R and hopefully will shoot very accurately because the MSRP is 4 Gs. Moving on from there, we have the return of the HK P7, sort of. The company is not HK, but rather P7 Pro, and they are taking a more custom approach to this whole thing. They have a configurator, and you can pick a bunch of details, including the pick rail, comped, and OptiCut slide, wood or polymer grips, and some other stuff. It's got 13 round mags from the M13, and it's honestly kind of neat. MSRP on this, with all the fancy options, is a staggering $45.90. And I know someone's already in the comments all upset about the prices on these guns, and I'll say that I agree that shit is out of hand in the industry, and I wish there was more interesting budget options to cover. I really do. I just can't cover stuff that doesn't exist. Let's keep it rolling. Smith & Wesson has released the new Spec series gun called, get this, the V-M&P9 Metal HD. Sounds like someone had a stroke while naming that. It looks pretty neat with this whole kit of stuff and a comped gun that's very competition-y as a setup overall. And compared to the previous guns this week, the MSRP of $1,700 isn't very offensive. However, the only V-spec that I want these days is the R34 kind. Skyline GTR all the way, baby. Escort, a brand that imports a bunch of stuff from Turkey, has a few new ones for us this week. New. Big quotes. We have the WS Youth, which claims to be a gas-operated and pump action, which isn't really possible, but it's got a 22-inch barrel and is a 20 gauge for an unknown MSRP. That's a youth gun. You also have the Optima series of over-unders with 12 and 28 gauge versions having 28-inch barrels. The 28 gauge version has a 26-inch barrel. Again, no idea on MSRP. They also announced the ERX bolt action, which appears to be a Remington 700 clone and can be had in 308 or 30-06 and uses AICS mags. Has a forward pick rail on the stock for bipod, which is cute. Again, no MSRP. Then you have the Boltac, which is a mag-fed pump action that looks like it stole the front end off a Keltec KS7, slapped it into one of those junk shotguns from Turkey that keep getting forced on the American gun owner? Yeah. And you can get them in 12, 20, or 410 with an 18-inch barrel, and the mags hold 5 rounds. As with the rest, no MSRP there. Escort is terrible at their jobs. For fun, make it up in the comments. Just make up that MSRP. CZ has a few new ones for us this week as well. First is the Shadow 2 target in a 5 and 6-inch version. That 6-inch looks really good. No MSRP on this. You know why the industry is so bad at this? It's just not that hard. Put the price on the website. It's not that hard. I wish it was optic cut though. I wish that 6-inch really did have an optic cut. Then you have the Shadow 2 Compact for $14.50 MSRP. The Shadow 2 Orange with an optic cut for no MSRP. I don't know. There's the 45 ACP version of the P10 FOR for $500 MSRP. That's really solid value. And of course, the Bren 2 MS or multiple sclerosis version. Those can be had with a bunch of variations for a pistol version of $1,900 or $2,110 for the carbine. I love the Bren, and that's not cheap. I feel like the rule in this industry have sort of become, if it's not an AR or a Turkish clone, it's freaking expensive. For real though, CZ does have nice guns, that's true, and the USPSA nerds will agree with me in the comments. Franchi has 2 new rifles and a new shotgun for us. First is the Affinity Waterfowl Elite. They updated these to have a larger loading port and a shell latch and probably some other stuff. My experience with the Franchi brand is that they're basically sort of a working man's Benelli, I guess. Middle management kind of thing. They're decent. They're good. Yeah. MSRP on these is $1,600, which is basically what you would have paid for a Benelli 5-7 years ago. Inflation's a Franchi also announced 2 rifles in their Momentum series. First is the Momentum Carbine Elite that can be had in 6.5 Creed 308 or 350 Legend. Carries a 1 MOA guarantee with good ammo. Looks pretty nice. It should for $1,250 MSRP. And we also have one they call an EDC rifle, the Momentum All-Terrain Elite. These come in 308 or 223 only, which is kind of silly because if you're doing a 223 version, you should at least do like Blackout, 350 Legend. I don't know, they're already doing a 350 Legend. What is it? I don't get it. They take AICS mags and only come in 18-inch versions. MSRP on that one is $1,480, and it does have that same 1 MOA guarantee. What's weird to me is that you can get a single MOA out of a lot of rifles these days, and to me, that's not a good enough bragging point these days. I say sub MOA or bust, and the industry needs to stop pretending like 1 MOA is good. It's average, par, normal, standard, ordinary, and we can and should do better. Speaking of Benelli, they have some new stuff too. The new models aren't really the interesting part though. They added AI to several of their shotguns, and it's not artificial intelligence. It's called Advanced Impact. And according to them, this is a dynamic new barrel and choke system designed to generate more velocity, energy, and downrange penetration from standard shells. Now, the info on how this is actually accomplished is really vague. It's vague as hell, but essentially, it's a new internal barrel profile that works with their proprietary choke for this system. This reminds me of the concept of backboring, where somebody would like change the internal geometry of a shotgun barrel to lengthen the forcing cone, sort of smooth everything out, and create better patterning downrange. They claim up to a 50% increase in penetration, and that could mean some serious gains for hunters and those long clay shots. However, ballistically, they're saying they're only getting a 4% increase in velocity at the muzzle, and a 6% increase in energy 1 meter out from the muzzle. The math isn't mathing. I'm curious how this is all coming together. It's going to be available on the Super Black Eagle 3 and the Ethos lines in a couple of variations. Stoeger announced a few new ones this week as well. We'll start with the shotguns. The M3000 Tactical has an 18.5-inch barrel, chambered for 2 3/4-inch shells, what appears to be a knockoff Magpul furniture set. MSRP there is $450, which is excellent value if it's decent. They also did a new Turkey version of the M3000 for $700. What's interesting is that the tactical pump gun, the P3000, looks identical to the semi-auto version, and it carries the same MSRP. So either someone screwed up on the press release, or you kind of choose your own adventure here with the same pricing. That's kind of cool. The handguns for them this week are the 2 versions of the STR9. The Combat SX is what they're calling a true fighting pistol, whatever that means. And it's got an optic cut, it's got extendo clipazines, and a threaded barrel. They call the color of it smoked bronze, but let's be fair. That's not bronze. That's flat dark dookie. MSRP is $700 on that one. Then you have their take on the micro compact with like a larger grip. Everyone seems to be doing that this year. It's the STR9 Thin Line. This has 14-round flush fit mags and 16-round extended. It's RMSC optic cut, and it has a comp on the slide. MSRP is $530, which is really solid value if that's good. Not mad about that one. Good value all around. And speaking of good value, how about a word from this week's sponsor, Medical Gear Outfitters. Whether you're looking to get an IFAK for yourself like the Civilian Medical Trauma Kit, or maybe something a little bit more diverse to keep in your truck like the Overlander First Aid Kit, they've got you covered. They even have one called the Mom First Aid Kit that has everything you can think of for minor boo-boos all the way up to major trauma. These kits from Medical Gear Outfitters will help you stay prepared for anything, and to make it even more affordable than it already is, use the code TGC10 for 10% off at medicalgearoutfitters.com. Big thanks to MGO for supporting this channel. Those guys are great. They really are, and we really appreciate them. You should go buy some stuff from them. They're great. We're going to pick up the pace a little bit, and then we're going to hit some accessories and ammo. Izzy, it's time. It's time. Fire up the minigun. It's rapid fire time. Fiocchi announced a new EDC ammo called Covert X. It's a lead core projectile with a nickel case, and to be honest, it doesn't look all that new or innovative at all, so hopefully it doesn't suck. They're doing a 389, 38, 357, and 45 ACP version, and those will be about standard weight on all those. MDT acquired Mountain Gear bipods. They released their own hunting bipod, a new brake, a new version of their Send It electronic level, a new version of the LSS chassis, a new timber core stock, which looks pretty sick, some soft goods, and a lube, and I'll be honest, I love their stuff, and it'll probably be good. Remington has some new ammo types for us. The Performance Wheel Gun 22, some 22 short, Royal Flush shotgun ammo, which is an upland hunting load, then the Duck Club steel shells, and some new stuff in the core locked and core lock tipped versions. Silencer Central is showing off their new Banish 9K, and it's a 3D printed titanium 9mm can that is ultra lightweight at just 2.7 ounces, which means it can be used without a Nielsen device on most handguns. MSRP there is $700. Dead Air also has the new Sandman X, which is an evolution of their Sandman line, obviously, and is 3D printed from Haynes 282, which is a fancy alloy that I think we're gonna start seeing in more cans. Like, this is the new Inconel, so to speak. This is a harder use version of the Sandman and carries an MSRP of right at $1,000. Silencer Co. added to the Scythe line with the STM version, which means it's now modular and has a sort of cod piece to make it full size on the end. And because it's stainless instead of titanium, the MSRP here is $939 versus $1175 for the titanium version. They also announced their own small 9mm titanium can, the Spectre 9K, and it weighs 3.17 ounces, has an MSRP that's not listed. The larger version of that can is $879. We covered their S98 can last week, so go watch that to learn about it. Hux Works has a few new ones. They teased a 12-gauge version of the Ventum 12K, I believe it's called, and they're calling it the world's first professional-grade shotgun suppressor in a partnership with Genesis Arms, who makes one of the fastest semi-auto 12-gauge shotguns out there. Those are fantastic. No pricing on that can yet. They also announced the Flow 9K Ti, which is a lighter, quieter, more efficient version of the Rad 9 can. It's fully 3D printed out of titanium. The booster has stainless and aluminum in it, so we get multiple materials, and that has a total of 8.9 ounces, fully loaded, or 4.8 for just a can. MSRP is $850. They also did the Flow Range 36 Ti, which is a sort of do-all can that's lightweight at 8.4 ounces without the mount, and is 3D printed titanium again, and it can also handle stuff from 9mm up to 338 Lapua. That's cool. MSRP on that is $1210. We have more new guns coming in just a minute, but first, a friendly fire question. Cheeto Dust 5406, amazing username, said, what operating system would you like to see in more rifles? That's easy. The one from the GM6 Lynx. I don't know what that is. I don't know what to call it. I don't know if it's the best out there. I just know it goes cha-chunk, and I love it. And we're taking a breather right now from the news, and I just want to point out that a bunch of you guys are fuds for saying that Kel-Tec pistol, the PR-57 that I covered last week, it shouldn't need a removable mag because no one needs more than 20 rounds for self-defense. First of all, since when do we say like that. Like, that's the kind of anti-gun stuff. Like, you don't need more than 20 rounds. What the Since when do we talk like that? Some of you guys sound like you work in Congress. Interchangeable mags and maximum capacity has always been encouraged on this channel. Also, on the topic of that gun, I'm not just harping on that. Like, on the topic of that gun, I would really like to see somebody effectively clear a jam without being able to remove a mag. There's no mag to take out. So how do you clear a jam? That's a good question. I haven't seen it done yet. That gun absolutely has a place in the world, but guys, like, we're smarter than this. It's not just like the be-all, end-all because it has 20 rounds in it permanently. Like, you can't. Okay. Anyway, I'm done. Moving on to some new optics, and then we're going to get into some more new guns. I have more guns for you guys. Burris announced the 5th gen of the full field line, which is their affordable hunting scope. Cool. Then you have the ultra fancy XTRPS, which has some really fancy stuff like a 19 mil revolution on the elevation turret. Normally that's 10, but this has 19 somehow. Really fine adjustment. It's also programmable. I don't know how they're doing that. Then it has a heads-up display in the optic. It's just bonkers. And it has an MSRP that isn't too crazy for what you're getting. $2,640 on the high end there. They also did their own mailbox optic, the Fastfire E, or enclosed. It's got an MSRP of $420. Steiner also released some new stuff. The E Predator 8 3-24 has some of the same features from that Burris. I mean, they're kind of related brands. It's probably got better glass in the Steiner, among other things. MSRP $3,300. They also showed off the H6XI line, which they are calling a tactical scope for hunters. That kind of just sounds like marketing speak for, this is a good scope, please hunt with it. These range from $2,200 to $2,500-ish MSRP. Leupold released the VX6 HD Gen 2, which is another take on including tactical sort of competition-y stuff on a hunting optic. This has a new dial system that's easier to use, a new zero lock that's pretty cool, and is seemingly sort of the hunting version of their Mark series of optics. Now, my go-to scope for testing rifles is the Mark V HD from Leupold. And it has been for a few years. But I would love to know what scope you guys want to see us using for rifle testing this year. Leave it down in the comments so we can reach out to that company. MSRP on the VX6 HD Gen 2 ranges from around $2,000 up to $2,700, depending on which one you want. And okay, enough of that other shit. More new guns. MAC, aka Military Armament Corp, has released a comped version of their MAC 9 DS. Looks a little bit like a sort of staccato at home thing, but I've heard these things might not actually be dog. 4¼ barrel, 17 round mags. MSRP is $1,079. Daniel Defense announced that their PCC is finally here. They actually teased this last year at GunCon, which was pretty cool. And it's here now. They use Scorpion mags. It has a cold hammer forged barrel and can be had in pistol, rifle, or SBR versions, all with an MSRP of $1,950. Guess what? It's time to talk about Palmetto State Armory. They did something like this last year, and people got freaking amped about it. Nobody else has ever done this that I'm aware of. The basic idea is that they have a few concept guns, and they want people to vote on what they should actually produce. And on the list this year is a bolt action called the Emerge. It's basically a Remington 700 clone. I don't know, I think it's kind of lame. Like, they're trying to do an ecosystem thing. That's great for them, but for the consumer, okay, that like kind of already, I don't know. Maybe they're taking a page out of Arrow's book in that way. If they're not laser accurate, it's dumb. If it's got to be accurate, otherwise it's dumb. Then you have the Olcan, which is a bullpup version of the Jackal. Then you have the Jackal 9mm. That takes CZ Scorpion mags and is a straight blowback design with a left side charge. Okay. Then you have the Saber Thumper, which is a 37mm launcher, and that's easily the dumbest thing on this pole. I think it's cool, but like it's the dumbest on this pole because 37mm ammo is not common or cheap. It's like $20 a round. It would look cool on a gun, but that's some LARPing stuff. Like, we can do better. I would love to see them make other stuff. They also have the Saber 11, which is their take on a 2011 style pistol. They say it'll come with a bull barrel, RMR plate with others available, external extractor, full-length dust cover, the pick rail, ambi safety, adjustable trigger. And it would be interesting to see where that one falls on price. The 2011 market is getting very interesting over the last year or two, and this would just add to that. Then you have the 570 semi-auto 12 gauge. It's got a forward charging handle, which is cool. It's built off the same receiver as their pump gun with the RMR cut on top, and it uses 870 furniture. which I like. It's pretty neat all around. Then you have the 338 Jackal, which is using the 338 ARC round. This will take the new 6-ARC mags from Magpul, which, by the way, I learned from you guys last week, will not fit a standard AR receiver. They're actually a little bit larger. Then there's the MSP45 that is a bolt-action pistol. It's meant to be used with a can. They specify the AAC can because they own that company. It uses a straight pull rotating bolt design and 1911 mags. This one's pretty neat, but I wish it was semi-auto and used double stack mags. That's a missed opportunity. Then there's the X9, which is a 9mm version of the X57, which was in last year's pull but is not in production. It's basically a modernized Mac that uses BNT mags, I believe, from the TP9. It's kind of TP9 at home. Then you have the precision version of the Jackal 10S that is sort of wading right into the SCAR 20 territory. Look out, FN. Your $5,000 rifle has competition. I personally think that if you have precision in the name, it better stack dimes on paper. Then we have the Krinkov in 338 ARC, which is really neat. Seems like they're really getting behind 338 ARC as a cartridge, almost as an FU to 8.6 Blackout. I mean, I can't confirm that. It just kind of seems that way. Then you have the VUK 9 or VUK 9 that is inspired by the Russian PPK-20. They also showed us the Switch, which is a metal Glock, and I will say that not a single metal Glock that I've ever shot has been good, like really good. Most of them are junk. It's not something I'm excited about. Then they showed the PA-22, which is a 1022 clone and therefore kind of a yawn fest. Then there was the Micro 380 version of the Dagger. It's cool for people that are recoil averse. They say it'll be really similar to the 9mm Micro. 15 round mags, a comp version, and our Arma C cut. Cool. Then we get into the one that a bunch of you guys were telling me about and got me really excited about. It's called the Saber Lancet, aka a semi-auto 50 BMG. They say this will be the most affordable gas-operated semi-auto 50 BMG on the market. Most guns in that category that I'm aware of are upwards of $8,000 to $10,000, if not more. The Lancet has a really simple, sort of extruded-looking receiver, and that sort of simplicity could be good for manufacturing and could allow them to make it more affordable. But that doesn't mean cheap. This thing could hit the market at like $5,000 and still be the cheapest 50 semi-auto out there. And that's all the guns. Which three would you pick? Tell me down in the comments. I would love to hear this. For me, it's going to be the Lancet at number 1, then the Jackal in 338, and the 570 shotgun after that, because I think that's cool. I know, I'm weird. Weird. And I know, this was an absolute mountain of stuff that we covered this week, and last week, and the week before. This has been a lot. So thanks to you guys that are out there sticking it out, watching the entire video, and if you didn't, you won't hear me calling you a sack of